Hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking back at our process mixer, and we're going to be doing a simulation of that process. And if you remember, we used the 5 steps for PLC development in order to create our program. We define the task, which in our case here we have a solenoid that fills up when we hit the start. It then goes past the empty sensor up to the full sensor where it stops. Then it will mix the motor for 30 seconds, and then what will happen is that the motor will stop, and then the release valve will turn on, which will empty the process out. Now the stop can be hit anytime within that sequence in order to stop the process, or hit start again to continue that process. So that's defining the task. The next step that we did was we find our inputs and outputs, which were the push buttons and the empty and full sensors and the timers. We had the solenoids empty and fill and empty. Then we developed our logic sequence of operation, and we did that by using a table. And the table actually had several different steps and the corresponding output for those steps. Then what we did was we developed the PLC program. And this program here, I went through each step, and the last part, or the last step that we did, was we actually tested the program, where we actually would mimic what was going on. So that was what we did prior. Now what we want to do is just continue with the testing of the program, and there's a few facilities that we are going to be using. The first one here is we're actually going to be using an actual PLC, and it's actually Bricks PLC by Automation Direct, and it has before what we used was the Do More designer software in order to program this and simulate it manually. But now what we're going to do is use what they call Factory I/O, and here is Factory I/O. It's a three-dimensional image of what we're looking for. And if you see, we have our panel here, and I'll zoom in a little bit here, rotate, and you can see I have my start, my stop, and I just called that dwell time. So that's our time for that mixer, which is going to be 30 seconds. Then if we look on the top, we actually have a fill valve that will actually fill up the tank. Down here we actually have a empty valve, and along the back here, what I've added to this tank is a couple of sensors. The first one here being the fill sensor, and we also have here the empty sensor. So these are just capacitive sensors looking through the tank in order to determine whether the tank is full or empty. So what we can do is just flip back to the front of our tank here, and we'll just leave it there for now. If we look at actually our program, okay, here's our program that we developed last time, and we did our testing. And all I'm going to do is, how Factory I/O works is it uses Modbus TCP, and it acts as a client or the master talking to the Bricks PLC Modbus server, which is a slave. So my start is going to be MC1 goes in my start, and then stop MC2. I have a full switch MC4, and an empty switch MC5, or vice versa. And then we have our output. We have cylinder A to fill and solenoid B to empty. And there's my corresponding values. So basically what I do is, my start of my program here, I'm actually taking my inputs and putting them into the PLC, the actual input itself. And remember, we do have a couple of links on the website about PLC scans. So yes, I can take an actual physical input like an X1 and fire it off, or in this case here an X0 with my start. So once I do that, then I have my outputs. There's my 2 outputs here, and they fire off a simulation here. And then what I do is, for my timer, I do a little bit of math and basically do the present value of that math, and I manipulate it using the integer of that value, and it just basically counts from 0 up to 30. So it shows me that value. Now, so that's all it is to program my I/O. So I just basically set that up. Now, if I go back to my factory and make sure that we're actually in run mode, which we are, you can see down here we're in run. Everything looks good. So we go back to our factory I/O, and if we look at file and we look at the drivers, here is actually how it maps. So here's all my sensors, and this goes into my slave ID here, which is server 192.168.111. That's what I've labeled the Bricks PLC that we're looking at right now. And I have my start, my stop, my empty, and my full sensor. And for my other side, I have my fill valve, my discharge valve. So there, and my dwell time. I'm only using the 3 right now, even though there's more. It kind of defaults to that. And if I want, I can just look at my other part here, and I can actually see what's happening. So flipping back now, we go to our configuration, and just to make sure you know how to set that up, if we go in the configuration, here's my Ethernet port right here. It's set for 192.168.111. So everything looks good. Over here I have enable my Modbus TCP server. Let's move that over a bit. So it's labeled right here. And so that's all it is for setup in order for us to simulate this process. So we'll say cancel that. So the only other thing left to do is actually to try it out. Let's just go to we'll say start right here. But what we'll do is just go to the front of the unit, and you'll see right here I'll hit the start. So I hit the start, you'll see that now it's filling up the tank, and it's going to fill it up until we hit this top sensor. The graphics are quite nice, and at any time I can just move around and see exactly what's happening. So we're filling up, and you'll see it's going to reach that top sensor soon. It's going to stop off that input to fill it up. There you go. And we'll swing around, and now we should see the dwell timer now starting to time. Sure, there's 15 seconds. At the same time, we could be monitoring our actual logic like we did before and view this. Now after the 30 seconds, which is really close, what you'll see is this valve now will open up, and we will actually then start emptying that tank. At any time, we can actually hit stop, and when we hit stop, it will stop the process for us at any given time, and we can hit start again to continue our process. So we'll let it finish off and empty the tank, and when it does, what will actually happen is that we will reset our dwell time back to 0 again. So there's an emptying. So you can have different views altogether, and we can swap between different views all the time. Very nice. And that's the end of the process right now. So if we want to start it again, we'll just hit the start button. And again, here we go with our process again. Stop at any time we want. So this is an active way in order to troubleshoot and ensure that logic in the PLC is going to do exactly as we want. Alright, that's it for now. If you all the links and documentation can be found on our website at accautomation.ca. And if you like this video and like to see more, there are 3 ways in which you can help us out. You can give us a thumbs up so other people can find this information just as you have. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at the end of the video. You can also go to accautomation.ca and subscribe to our website. When you do, you'll get notification every time we publish new content to the site. You'll also get 2 free ebooks on numbering systems and robust data logging. And the third thing to do to help us out is tell a friend or colleague about the site. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.